Siomra
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to Sure Look, Sure Listen, the podcast that takes a pop at culture. Sure Look, Sure Listen, Sure Listen.
Sure look, 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 sure listen. Oh, Ben, it's still Spookoween. Benjamin, you're putting a little bit more of a pause each week between sure look and sure listen. And I have to say, I'm there for it, Ben. I'm there for the drama it creates.
It's for suspense, Michael. It's purely for suspense.
Exactly.
As you know, I'm taking an improv class 3 times a week, Michael.
Very good. But Ben, sure look, we've got a lot to cover this week. For example, there's a new Resident Evil fan film called Resident Evil Welcome to Raccoon City, which is for some reason being released in cinemas. Then there's also, Ben, coming up very soon on HBO, a new Game of Thrones fan spin-off called House of the Dragon spin-off, which is for some reason also being produced. And, Benjamin, we have both seen the new Marvel's What If season finale, and I've had a little look at James Bond, No Time to Die. Who's he kidding, Ben? It's 3.5 hours long. Plenty of time to die.
Sure, listen, Michael, if there wasn't enough time to die, there will be by the end of this podcast, because we're going to be taking a look at urban horror, Michael, because it's Spooktober, and we're going to keep going. We had an excellent start there last week with Dr. Stephen J. Cadwell, who talked to us all about video games and horror, and this week we're going to be talking all about hell and the inner city, the urban environment, and spooky horror treats.
Oh, no.
Oh no. But Michael...
No, Ben, I have... that's a disaster.
Why?
I've misunderstood it. I've only watched horror films which featured Carl Urban.
Oh,
I thought we were doing urban horror.
There's like 3 horror films with Carl Urban.
3 horror films with Carl Urban. Oh, no, Ben. Oh, no. Ben, I've misunderstood this week's topic, and I've only read urbane horrors from the likes of James Joyce and... what's his name? You know, the fella on the rock who's always lounging.
the lad on the rock who does be lounging.
The lad on the rock, he's always lounging. Stephen Fry or whatever
Oscar
his name is.
Wilde, Michael.
That's the fella, yeah. I've only read urbane horrors, Ben.
That's what.
Oh, no.
That's what Michael says to tourists in Dublin City. Here, come here to me. Have you heard about the lad lounging on the rock? Have you? Go on.
He's always lounging on the rock. He's made of all sorts of different kind of marble.
Jesus Christ. Michael.
Hello.
Speaking of Dr. Stephen J. Cadwell, last week we took a look at Resident Evil 1. And then the universe gave us a spanking, Michael, because after that episode, yes, it often does, because that episode was published, and then directly after it, about 2 days, came the trailer for Resident Evil Welcome to Raccoon City.
Resident Evil Welcome to Raccoon City. Is that what it's called?
Welcome to Rackham City.
Welcome to Rackham City,
lads.
Rackham Stackham City. Benjamin.
Yeah.
A little twist for you. It was the same day. It was about 20 minutes after we finished recording, as per protocol. I tell you what, Benjamin. Looks like a fan film. It's mad.
It's real choppy looking. It's a straight to DVD looking fucker.
How's that getting into the cinema, Ben? Are we so bereft of things to see in the cinema that we're gonna put that in?
But do you know what I want to know, Michael?
Go on.
What happened to Robbie Amell? Why is he in a straight to DVD series?
It's going to cinemas, Ben. It's going to cinemas.
It shouldn't.
One of my favourite things about it, Ben, is the first comment under it on the YouTube channel that it's posted on. It says, they are so dedicated to recreating the original 90s experience, they've even included the shoddy acting and cheap 90s CGI.
That's what I was thinking. I was like, is it an intentional little like nod to rubbish CGI? It's not. It's just crap, is it? No.
It's just rubbish. It's just rubbish. The worst thing about it is, Ben, they've gone and they've done... Someone has said, hey guys, you know, I'm from America. I'm a studio exec. And what I want you guys to do is put more Resident Evils in it, because people are complaining there's not enough Resident Evils in it. So they've got to put Resident Evils in it, Ben. But in an effort to harken back to the originals, they've done 2 and 1. It's Resident Evil 2 and Resident Evil 1 combined together into, it seems, one film.
A domicile of evil.
So there's the house. There's the Resident Evil house. That's from Resident Evil 1. Mm-hmm. But all of the police station stuff and the Raccoon City stuff, that's from Resident Evil 2.
Ah.
And it looks like we have Chris, who's from Resident Evil 1.
Okay.
played by, for some reason, Robbie Amell.
Is that Robbie
Who-
Amell? Is that who it is?
That's Robbie Amell. He looks like he's playing Chris Redfield.
Okay.
He'll punch a boulder in half, Ben. Not in this, though, it doesn't seem. And
No,
I
he
tell
gets
you what,
augmented later on, does he?
I not really. He just gets plot armor, and
Oh, that's handy.
he doesn't get powers. Anyway, Ben,
Yeah.
no better casting for a generic man from the 90s than generic man from the 90s Robbie Amell. It's a spectacular bit of casting. It's incredible.
They just looked for the default character setting in real
Yeah.
life, and they found Robbie Amell.
Robbie Amell, yeah. Generically handsome man, Robbie Amell. Benjamin, he's from Resident Evil 1. His sister Claire, who you'll recognise from having a red leather jacket and showing up on a motorbike,
Yes.
is from Resident Evil 2.
Oh, controversial.
And the main character, Jill, from Resident Evil 1.
Jill Valentine.
She's also a lady. Jill Valentine. She's also a lady. And she might be in it, or I can't tell if Hannah John Kamen is playing Jill Valentine or Rebecca, one of the other STARS team members.
Okay.
It's a melange, Ben. It's just a melange of Resident Evil tropes, including your favourite moment. There's a zombie turning around and he's looking at me.
That was Stephen J. Cadwell's favourite moment, but okay.
Yeah. And the other favourite moment of, oh no, here's dogs.
Oh, no, here's dogs, which is not my
Here's
usual
dogs.
response. Normally it's like, oh,
No.
yes,
Yeah,
here's
but they're
dogs.
evil dogs. They're
Oh,
evil
they're
dogs
evil
this
dogs.
time, Ben. Yeah,
There's no such thing as evil dogs, Michael. There's just bad owners.
No, I think in this case they're evil dogs because they've
Oh,
got the
okay.
zombie virus. Yeah, they've
Oh,
got
that's
the
no
zombie
good.
virus. No use at all. They're trying to kill you. They're going to give you the zombie virus. I tell you what, though, Ben. I've no time for it. It looks ridiculous. I can't believe they've made it.
It
It's
looks
way too
really
late.
bad.
It's way too late, Ben.
Yeah, I just don't think it's going to turn out very well. The acting doesn't look to be up to scratch.
Hannah John Kamen is the surprising one for me. I don't know. Maybe she's not as high profile as I think she is. But it was weird to just see her in passing in like a couple of frames and for it not to be advertised that she's in it.
It's the same with the guy from Umbrella Academy, though. He's in there.
The guy from Umbrella, let's call him Tom Ford. I don't think that's his name, but let's call him that.
You're not a million miles off, though. It is Tom something, I think.
Yeah, he looks like he'll be a Tom Ford. He's in it. I can't tell, Ben, if he's playing Barry from the original game, and if he is, it's a great bit of casting, or if he's playing Albert Wesker, the slimy, sleazy evildoer.
Maybe he's Wesker and Barry. Maybe Wesker
Barry
is a
Wesker.
clone of Barry in this case. Who's to
It
say,
could be,
Michael?
Ben. Not me, because I probably won't even see the damn thing, to be
I
honest.
won't be seeing it, Michael. I have no interest.
It looks particularly notably silly.
Which is funny because it comes after a franchise of notably silly Resident Evil films.
Yes, but it's a very different type of silly. It's so fan film.
Yeah,
It's
very
so
fan
fan film. The lead, it seems to focus on Claire as the lead. And I've never seen that actress before.
It's 2021, Michael. It's
2021.
It's time for the
Everything's
Claires
fan
of
films.
the Claire Redfields of the world to
Exactly.
step up and take their place at the head of the franchise.
Well, Claire, arguably has been at the head of the franchise quite a bit.
Then it's time
She
for
was
Claire
the
to
main-
stay exactly in her lane.
Yes. Stay in your lane, Claire. It's 2021. This isn't time for change. This is time for straight-to-DVD movies being released in the cinema for some reason.
Yeah, because we just run out of content. They haven't been able to make enough movies due to the global panini, and so
They're like, is there? Do we have any movies? And they're like, nah, no, there's no movies. We've got no movies left. And this is surely Robbie Amell has done something. Does he have anything? Like, they called him up and said, Robbie, are you doing any of your fan films with your cousin? And he says, no, I'm not doing any fan films with my cousin Stephen Amell, the more famous Amell brother. But have you ever heard of Resident Evil? That's exactly what happened.
Yeah, no, that's precisely it, Michael. Precisely it.
Benjamin.
Yes.
Speaking of fan films that no one wanted.
That no one wanted, Michael.
Yeah. Why is House of the Dragon happening?
Michael, who said
it
to Matt
because-
Smith, you look good in that wig?
He doesn't, though. He looks a bit silly.
Who gave him that advice, Michael?
He looks a bit silly, Ben. I don't like his little wig.
No, it's very silly.
Ben,
Yes.
can you do me a favour, please?
Yes, I can, yeah.
Can you name me one good prequel series?
Oh,
Please, Ben. Please just name me one good prequel series.
Michael and Benjamin's podcast.
Oh, no, that wasn't a prequel. That was just the original, Ben. That was dreadful, though. The audio quality, shocking, appalling. Benjamin, a lot more racist as well. Benjamin, Better Call Saul, maybe.
Better Call Saul, maybe.
But that's not really a prequel series, is it?
No, they just did their own thing, and they were like, "Oh yeah, do you remember how he has to do a whole other storyline?" Oh yeah. I think they've spent all their goodwill, though, Michael. I think this is a very poor choice. I think a lot of people are going to be like, "Why would I go back to Game of Thrones, the show that broke my heart into 1,000 tiny pieces?"
Yeah, because all they're going to do is spend 7 seasons building something up slowly and then fuck it.
Yeah. So I'm going to invest. I'm going to, some friends will become enemies, some enemies will become friends. I will be on that roller coaster of emotion. I will choose the characters to whom I will stan eternally. I will fall in love with various people only to have them disappear from the show without a trace. And what's the point in all that? Also,
Benjamin.
Matt Smith looks very silly in a wig. Yes.
He's got a funny wig on. Benjamin, the Song of Ice and Fire board game apparently is very good. It's a little miniature war game that is very popular and ever growing in popularity on YouTube at least. So maybe that is where the legacy of H.R.R.G. Geiger Martin will go.
Yeah, H.R.G. Geiger Martin, great lad. A bit slow on the L writing.
Yeah. Also very Swiss. Everything was a penis.
Everything. Absolutely everything. We're mixing up two legends of the fantasy world and sci-fi world, but that's okay. That's okay, Michael.
We've mixed them up. I was thinking of the guy from Game of Thrones.
Yes.
And you.
You got me.
I got you. Benjamin.
Well played. Yes.
Yes, all joking aside, though, I don't care.
I don't think anybody does. I think the other great mistake here, Michael, is that they're basing it on the Targaryen bloodline, and everybody kind of went off Targaryens after Emilia Clarke. They were just like, meh.
Yeah, it's like, oh no, I wish I hadn't named my bloody daughter Daenerys.
That was a bit of a mistake.
That was a bit of a whoopsie.
Yeah, it's almost like naming your child Hannibal after seeing the first 2 minutes of Silence of the Lambs.
Yes, I think it will. The funny thing is, or Damien after the film The Omen.
Yes,
I think it will have. It will have done for names what a lot of those films and TV shows also did for names. But I think it's probably unique. It's the first thing to ever introduce and popularize a name, and then immediately turn people off it within its own lifetime.
Almost instantly.
It's. I think that might be. That might be the greatest legacy of Game of Thrones, that in 40 years there are going to be a very small subset of women born between 2015 and 2019 called Daenerys. There will be none before and none after, and it's a little bon mot, Ben. It's just delicious.
I'm sorry, Michael, it's a little what?
A little bon mot.
Go on, tell me more about that there now. What's that now?
A little delicious thing.
Ladies and gentlemen, if we ever decide to pivot out of this particular podcasting format and into another one, I'm going to call it Pop Culture Bon Mus, and we're going to do exact little things. Weird and unexpected butterfly effects within pop culture.
Delicious.
Okay.
A little amuse-bouche, Ben. An amuse-bouche of pop culture.
Michael, I think it should go off and die. But speaking of people who have no time to be doing that.
Very good. Benjamin.
Yes.
It's more than 3 hours long. It should have been called James Bond, arguably too much time to die, to be honest, because Mick had to go for a piss in the middle.
We'll probably get around to it.
Yeah, he'll probably get around to dying. Benjamin, we'll do no spoilers first. Do you want no spoilers first?
Go on, don't spoil it for me.
I won't spoil it for you. It's James Bond. He's James Bonding about the place, Ben.
Very good.
He's on one last mission for the Queen or whatever.
Classic.
Yeah, he's going to Cuba, Ben, and Ana de Armas is there, and Ana de Armas was much less famous 3 years ago when this was filmed, so she's only in it a little bit.
Was it 3 years ago that it was filmed, Michael?
At least, yeah, at least.
Jesus.
This has been sitting on the shelf for a long time.
That's insane.
So yeah, they're really pushing Ana de Armas in the marketing, obviously.
Yeah, because it's Ana de Armas.
Yeah, but she's in it for a grand total of about 12 minutes, Ben.
12 great minutes though.
And then probably the 12 best minutes, all joking aside. It's the most action-packed and fun bit. It's car chases, Ben, it's intrigue, but I have to say I didn't care. Everyone's car chasing each other and shooting at each other, and there's a new replacement for Bond. And Ben, Freddie Mercury's there, and he's bad, and he's an asshole.
And he's bad, and he's an asshole. Right, so that's the no spoilers version. Now I'm going to pick your brain, Michael, right? Now I'm going to pick your brain, and we're going to do full spoilers, ladies and gentlemen.
Do full spoilers for the film James Bond: No Time to Die, which has been out for a couple of weeks, I think, in most of the world.
So if you don't want spoilers for a James
Yeah.
Bond, off you go and take a dip in a pond.
Oh, that's great.
Yes.
Or just follow the time codes to the next section.
That is probably a more practical solution to the issue. So, Michael, come here to me. Come here
Right,
to me now.
I'm here.
Why is Freddie
Yes, I'm
Mercury on the huff?
Cause, Ben, Spectre. You know Spectre?
Ah, yeah. Not a
They're like
grand bunch
Hydra.
of lads.
No, they're the worst bunch of lads. So, Spectre, Ben, they poisoned his family.
Oh, what dicks.
They killed all his family, Ben, and they poisoned everyone, including him.
Oh, no.
Yeah, so he's like, hello, it's me, Freddie Mercury. I want to kill everyone in Spectre. What do you think of that, James Bond? And James Bond is like, well, bloody hell, that's... Actually, you know what, I'm not really that opposed to that, to be honest.
Yeah.
And then Freddie Mercury says, and then everyone else. And James Bond says, well, okay, I'm less inclined towards that, to be fair. Let's have a fight.
That's like your mate when they're like... They organise like a nice pre-drinks in a pub, Michael. And then, but they want to go and do like laser tag afterwards. You're like, oh, I think I'll just go for the
that
drinks.
sounds like great fun. That sounds like great fun, Ben, I have to say.
Yeah.
I'm with the evil Freddie Mercury on
So
that one.
you're the Freddie Mercury in that case, and I'll go for the meal. Probably not gonna stick around for the laser tag. Probably not.
So
gonna
Freddie
do that.
Mercury's there, Ben. He's making a funny face and he's going, we have to poison everybody because my family's dead.
Villain.
What do you think of that? And James Bond says, oh, I'll give you a kick. And that's pretty much the story.
That's the film. Okay.
That's the film. 3 hours of running around to solve that problem.
That sounds
And
fascinating.
James Bond is in love with a lady.
Oh,
Yes,
good for
they do.
him.
Yeah, he's in love with a lady, Ben. And there's James Bond stuff. There's cars, and there's one gadget, and there's Q, and there's M, and there's Moneypenny, and there's a new lady secret agent, and it's all sorts of James Bond stuff. Ben,
Yes.
no great James Bond fan am I at the best of times anyway. I have seen them all. I could not tell you what happened in the last one.
Christoph Waltz acts Christoph Waltzy, and
What was the last one even called?
Spectre.
Was it called Spectre? Leia
Conveniently,
Seydoux was apparently in that. I don't remember her being
she
in
was. Yeah.
it. She's a very important character in this one, much more important than Anna de Armas.
That's a shame.
Why?
Because I'd be more inclined to watch the James Bond film if Anna de Armas was in it for longer.
Well, we don't want to hear about that, Ben. We don't want to hear about whether you prefer the French or the Afro-Caribbeans.
Huh?
Oh no, she's not. She's
What?
She's from Cuba. She's from Cuba, isn't she?
What?
He's in the Bahamas for a lot of it. That's why. That's why that slipped into my head.
Today on the Still Racist podcast.
That wasn't racist. I just got mixed up about places. He travels all around the world, Ben. He's hopping from place to place, and he's punching baddies. It's. I mean, I wish I had something more interesting and engaging to say about it. I didn't. I wasn't madly interested or engaged by it. It was fine. It was a bit long, and Daniel Craig looked a bit bored, to be honest, a lot of the time. And he was like, "Oh, can't wait for this to be over." And yeah, now it's over.
That's the interesting thing about Daniel Craig, right? He constantly
Yeah.
like, oh, this is my last one. This is my last one. This is my last.
Mm-hmm.
Can't turn down that paycheck though.
So much money, Ben.
So much money, Michael.
And then he can go and he can do funny southern accents and go, I'm going to solve this murder.
With Anna de Armas.
With Anna de Armas, yeah. I wonder if she did it. That's my southern accent.
Very good. You almost nailed it there, Michael. Come here to me,
Thank you very
Michael.
much.
The
Yes.
lady
What
spy
is it?
that's causing so much controversy. The female James Bond. The woman that every newspaper in England wants to be the next James Bond. What's the story there?
Well, she's not James Bond, Ben. She's the next 007.
Right, yeah. Still,
But
same
she
thing.
has a name. Her name is Nomi, and she's a secret agent. And depending on where you lie politically, Ben, on the YouTube /Reddit /Twitter /Tumblr spectrum, or Spectre, if you want,
Spectrum.
people were either delighted or appalled that there was going to be a black lady replacing James Bond as the new James Bond. And she very much isn't replacing James Bond as the new James Bond. She's a special agent on Her Majesty's Secret Service. And the way the trailer sets it up to be like she's going to one-up James Bond at every stage because she's the future and she's modern and she's a lady and she's got everything under control. Nothing like that at all.
Didn't really think there would be.
No, she's a bit well, though. I mean, it wouldn't be the first time that they introduced a character like that. I'm not naming names, Captain Marvel, but oh, did I just say that?
And they're now furiously retconning it in various TV series that they have on.
Well, yeah, that's the thing. They just have met Captain Marvel lose all the time in TV series now, so that because she never even lost as much as an argument on screen. Anyway, Ben.
Yeah.
I think a lot of James Bond fans were worried about that, and if anything, I think she was a bit underutilized, to be honest.
Oh, what a waste!
She's a sidekick. She's the classic, competitive sidekick. Like, let's one up each other, and it's fine though. It's fine. It's good. It's all right. It's fine.
It's fine. So you made me include James Bond Jr. No Time to Be Dying.
Well, I had to watch it for 3 hours, Ben. Plenty of time to die. Too much time to die, probably.
Too much time to die, Michael.
It's fine. No great James Bond fan am I, Ben, so I don't have a lot to say about it, to be honest. So maybe we shouldn't have included it. Maybe we should just move on, Ben, and think to ourselves, what if we hadn't just spent 10 minutes talking about James Bond?
Michael, we got the ultimate episode of...
Benjamin, was that my best ever segue? I think it might have been.
I think it was. Yes, Michael, so that brings us to the ultimate episode of What If this week, Michael, where we got to take a look at what if we had a bunch of interdimensional Avengers who are slightly more interesting than the regular
What
Avengers.
if, Ben? Less interesting. What if, Ben? What if one of the episodes that was needed for that show to make sense hadn't been aired on time?
I know. What was that about?
What's going on? I want to see that episode.
What happened there? There was an entire section that was missing.
They seem to have... It looks like what if Tony had been sent to Sakaar instead of Hulk.
That's exactly what it is. And then had somehow become best mates with Gamora. Like, what was the deal there?
Yeah, it was Tony and Gamora instead of Hulk and Thor. And they seem to have killed Thanos and destroyed the Infinity Stones. And that seems pretty epic, Ben. I'm more interested in seeing what happened there, to be honest.
Why didn't we get to see that, Michael? Why did we just get... Where was that?
COVID, Ben. It was COVID.
How was it COVID, though? It's animated. What do you mean it was COVID?
I don't know. I suppose they couldn't get actors, or there were some issues that people couldn't get into a studio, or I don't know, Ben. I don't know. Maybe working from home slowed down the progress because they had to upload it to everyone's home computers, and that took a few hours, and I don't know. We just didn't get it.
Very silly, Michael. There's because she's a key character in that finale.
She's kind of a key character. The one thing they brought her there for, the knowledge of how to destroy the stones, ends up not working anyway.
Yeah, but it's so interesting, Michael. There's an entire episode of What If out there. What if we'd gotten the episode of What If that we didn't get to see?
And what if that episode hadn't been any use? Then what if?
Well, I mean, it would have joined the ranks of the likes of Captain Carter, wouldn't it?
Oh, you got her.
Zing.
Benjamin.
Yeah.
My favourite thing about this episode of What If was what if Doctor Strange fought Ultron with all the Infinity Stones and some of his mates were there in a kind of supporting role.
What was that about, Michael? What was the thing of, do you know who's better than everybody?
Doctor Strange.
Doctor Strange.
Doctor Strange if he's evil.
Where has this unearned sense of just, do you know who'd beat everybody? Doctor Strange come from?
Benjamin.
Yeah.
He spent thousands of lifetimes absorbing every demonic entity you could find.
Yes, I suppose that's true.
Up to and including, it seems, the likes of no, not Dormammu. What's the big tently fella's name?
Cthulhu.
No, not in. What's the Marvel equivalent of him? He's got Shumagorath.
Yeah, okay. I don't remember.
So, he's absorbing all those demons for thousands and thousands of years. So he's got all sorts of powers if you want.
Yeah, that's true. That's very fair, Michael. That's very fair. Come here to me.
Right, go on.
Killmonger's just the same guy again. There's no...
Yeah, he's a real prick.
He's just a prick.
He'll turn on you as soon as you look at him.
That's his character. He's a prick.
Yeah, he's no use, Ben. He's one of the best Marvel villains, but even in Black Panther, you have to recognise that he is a bit of a prick.
He's just a prick, like.
He's a real untrustworthy fella.
Yeah.
You wouldn't want to trust him. He's nearly as bad as Armin Zola.
Nearly. Armin was going to give it a go too. He was like,
I'll have those. I'll have those stones, please, because I am here in the stomach, in my natural environment.
But to be perfectly honest with you, Michael, probably could have seen
Yes.
that coming. That's not exactly a revelatory, twist.
Well, Benjamin,
Yes.
I believe that is the plot of the episode.
What? That Armin Zola gets the
That
Infinity
the
Stones?
Watcher... Yeah, no, that the Watcher did see that coming. He saw the betrayal of Armanzola and he saw the betrayal of Killmonger, and he knew that Armanzola and Killmonger would end up fighting over the stones, and that would be a good time to suck them all up into a little dimension, because neither of them is as powerful as Ultron with all the stones.
So it's a little bit of a what if the Watcher was actually Stephen Strange from Endgame kind of vibe.
Exactly. The Watcher was like, I knew all along, it's me, Jeffrey Wright. I was just in No Time to Die there a few minutes ago, remember?
Nobody remembered, of course, but
Nobody remembered. Nobody had any time to watch it. It was too long.
he's going to be Commissioner Gordon now soon as well.
He's everyone
He's
now.
everybody.
He
Everybody's
is-
Jeffrey Wright.
Jeffrey Wright is man of the moment. Jeffrey Wright is the face of our times.
Interesting choice of words there, Michael. So come here to me. What did you think of the ragtag group of interdimensional Avengers?
I like them.
Did you like them? Did you have time for them?
I like them, yeah. I like them. I had a bit of time for them. Again, complete, no use, no need for them to be there. It could have been me, you, Dr. Stephen Cadwell, Shane, and a couple of children. Because Doctor Strange really did everything.
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 The others were just running up and slapping him. I suppose Black Widow and Captain Carter stuck the arrow in him. And then... And what's-his-face was necessary for the betrayal. But really it was just Dr. Stephen Strange.
Yeah, just giving it socks.
In fact, to the point of, if it had been just Dr. Stephen Strange and the Watcher, who we saw give Ultron a pretty good going over last week,
Yes.
they probably would have just won anyway.
Yes. Two of them probably could have done it.
They probably could have done it. And why did he snatch up all the dysfunctionals? Like, when he went to the Party Thor universe, why didn't he snatch up Captain Marvel from there?
Why did he pick Killmonger, Michael?
Yeah, well, no, because he knew Killmonger would betray them, Ben. We've covered this. That makes sense. I suppose Captain Marvel has already been defeated by Ultron in this universe, so you don't want to just throw the same thing at him again.
Also, arguably, the way he goes about saying it, you have been chosen. That's his big thing. It's like, some of those characters are definitely not the most powerful version that there could be to take on a threat like Ultron. Like Party Thor.
The worst Thor.
The worst
He's
Thor.
the worst Thor to do it. Yeah. Like, what's his face? End of Infinity War Thor actually has already almost killed someone with a full gauntlet.
Done it a few times.
Yeah, and he has a bloody axe which is specifically designed to kill people with Infinity Stones.
Maybe get that guy.
Get him, yeah. But Ben, he didn't need to get him because for the plot convenience, remember, the Watcher already knew all of the possibilities.
I know, Michael.
Which, really, then how was he surprised in the first place? Ben, I hate multiverses. I hate time travel. I've no time for them. Keep it grounded.
They're not going to do that. But also, again, Michael, we've talked about this a little bit before. Sometimes a series like Loki will come along, and it undermines the achievement of the universe that we've come to know. So, the events of Endgame and the events of Infinity War pale in comparison to the unlocking of a multiverse from a fixed time loop.
Yes. Benjamin.
Yes.
I see it as an artistic selfishness.
Is that what it is?
It's when people... Yes, it is. It's when people are writing in a shared... Well, it's one of the perils of a shared universe, first of all. But it's when people are writing in a shared universe to say, well, you know what? That shared universe is all well and good, but my story is so important that I'm going to bust open the world of that shared universe.
Yes, and that's what's happened.
And that's what's happening with pretty much all of the shows recently.
Yes.
With Loki, with whatchamacallit. What was that one you were saying?
Bloody...
What If.
What If.
That's what it's called.
What we're talking about, yeah.
Yeah, so look, Ben, to be honest, I don't think this What If-ery is going to be... quote unquote, Ben, air quotes, finger blasts, canon. I don't think it. I think, to be honest, it's all going to be fairly inconsequential.
It's just going to be a nice little series of vignettes.
Yeah, that is ripe to be ignored if you so choose. And if you never watch it, it's not going to affect your movie watching. It's not going to affect the other series. Nothing's going to happen. If they wanted, Ben, when they were doing the happy endings at the end, the Watcher could have plopped Black Widow back into our universe, the main universe.
That would have been a good one, wouldn't it?
That would have been consequential, is what I'm saying.
Yes, but we don't want that.
Exactly. Because it's like bringing Coulson back in Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. You don't want to have consequential things happening in a platform that fewer people are seeing.
Yeah, it wouldn't be great, would it?
No, people wouldn't like it. People are like, I'm pretty sure he was dead.
I think for definite he was dead. That was the whole plot of the first movie. Remember, they all
plot.
came together because he died.
Yeah, he got stabbed. Ben,
Yeah.
having said that, it's like the Resident Evil films or the X-Men films. It could be like that, where, or even the James Bond films, where there's not really a continuity. You just have to have a vague sense of what happened before.
Just a rough sketch.
Yeah, so like if they kind of brought James Bond back and then they said, I thought he was dead, and it's like, don't worry about it. Like when they kept bringing Emma Frost into the X-Men films and she was like a teenager in the 70s, a fully grown woman in the 60s, and then a teenager again in the 90s. And anyone
Classic
who said,
Emma Frost's
Classic Emma
age-shifting
Frost.
powers.
What's she up to? And it goes, don't worry about it. Why was Jean Grey 20 in 1960 and 20 in 1990? Don't worry your little head about it.
What are you worrying about?
They could have just brought Philip Coulson back and said that. Don't worry your little head about it. It happened in an animated cartoon series that you haven't seen.
Pat.
Yes, don't worry your little head. She's back now. Black Widow's back. She's on the helicarrier. She's doing a kick and everyone's back. Don't worry about it. It happened in an animated cartoon series that you didn't watch.
That's all you needed to know. Goodbye.
Yes. I mean, I enjoyed What If, Ben. I enjoyed it from start to finish. But
I enjoyed it from second episode to finish. Yes.
I like Captain Carter's stealth suit. I like the recreation of the battle on the Lemurian star, Ben. I thought that was interesting and fun and amusing, and was glad that it wasn't the whole episode.
I think the final episode of I thoroughly enjoyed Interdimensional Avengers kicking Interdimensional Ultron's butt.
They kept kicking him in the head, Ben.
They just they gave him no reprieve, Michael. They just gave him a whooping.
They were throwing bricks at his head. They were throwing hammers at his head. 2 different shields.
Whatever they could get their hands on, Michael.
There were moments of where it was just like bonk, bonk, bonk.
I thought it was done really well, though. It was choreographed really, really well. I thought it was a smooth thing.
There was one tiny little nitpicky flaw in choreography, and it was when Ultron tried to use the powers to destroy the whole galaxy, and then Doctor Strange kind of grasped the power and swallowed it.
Yes.
And that happened in the middle for the battle to get a hold of the Soul Stone. And that effect was the same colour as the Soul Stone. So I
thought he was eating the Soul Stone.
I thought that. You thought that. My good lady friend thought that. And we were like, why is the Soul Stone still there? I thought he just swallowed it. But that wasn't what happened. Ultron had tried to blow up the galaxy to solve the problem.
Classic.
And Strange had gone, nom, 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 I'll eat that, delicious. And then Ultron goes, what?
Because I thought what was happening was, Michael, we were about to see a bloody evil Doctor Stephen Strange moment, where he's taking the power for himself. I thought perhaps, Michael, that Killmonger was a red herring to make us go, Killmonger's going to fuck up some stuff. And it's like, no, it was Stephen Strange all along.
Yeah. Benjamin.
Yes.
The thing to bear in mind, though, is he's not evil Doctor Strange.
He's just Doctor Strange.
He's Doctor Strange, but if you remember, the whole denouement of that episode was the fact he had to reabsorb his good side.
Oh, I forgot about that, Michael.
So he's kind of like balanced Doctor Strange.
Oh, boo.
Yeah. He did kill Clokey, though, so fuck that guy.
Fuck that guy, man.
Yeah, no
R.I.P. Clokey.
Yeah, poor old Clokey, my favourite character.
Yeah, oh, man. Speaking of absolutely horrific events, Michael, that we may never recover from.
Hey.
Hey.
I do the smooth segues around here.
It's Spooktober here on Sure Look, Sure Listen, the podcast that takes a pop of culture, Michael. And what we're doing is we're taking a look at a few different little horror episodes just to sink our teeth into pre-October 31st, Michael.
Ooh. Benjamin, the spookiest thing that's happened this week is the number of technical difficulties we've had.
We're currently resting at 3. Keen-eared listeners will be able to hear the actual death of enthusiasm in our voices as various stages come along.
So it's no good, Ben. I think we're haunted. I think we're haunted by gremlins or possibly some sort of ghosts.
The decline of a podcast in 3 acts.
Just a little glimpse behind the curtain for everyone. This is the 3rd time we've had to start recording and resynchronize this because we're not having a good day. So if we seem less enthusiastic, you know why.
It's depression. So in general, yeah, stuff like that can catch us off guard sometimes, Michael. We don't mean it to.
Ben, look,
don't mean it to.
We're only human, like the producers of Marvel's What If. They missed a whole episode. At least we'll get this out.
Now, Michael, come here to me.
Yes, come on, listening.
Come here to me.
I'm listening.
Do you ever find yourself on the commute to work, right?
Yeah.
Do you ever find yourself thinking, oh, Jesus, do you know what? I feel like I'm being corrupted internally by the steel and concrete structures around me.
No, Ben, I live in the suburbs of Dublin. It's very leafy and green. And Dublin itself, although an urban city, is quite low-rise and green.
Michael.
Yes.
Have you ever found yourself with a co-host who's trying to make an interesting segue and you just feel like, no, I'm going to fuck with his day?
Yeah, all the time. Just there a few minutes ago, I just did it.
Well, Michael, come here to me. Have you ever taken a trip over to old London town?
I've been in London town, mate.
Yes, you have. And, Michael, have you ever found yourself on the tube there?
Oh, so grim, Ben. It feels like it's entering into my very soul.
Yes, it feels like it's replacing your arteries with bloody tube lines, Michael, and you might go a bit crazy and kill everybody. No, of course, we wouldn't actually do that, Michael. That'll get us on a watch list. But in that particular case, Michael, you've probably experienced a supreme moment of urban horror.
Oh, I thought we were talking about urbane horror. We've been recording this for so long, Ben, I forgot if I've already made that joke. Did I make that joke earlier?
Yeah, you've made that joke earlier, Michael, but that's okay.
Okay.
That's okay.
Urbane horror.
Michael, this week we're taking a look at Hell and the Inner City, urban horror from the 1990s onwards, with a little look at its roots.
Benjamin, I've made a terrible mistake. I only watched horror films featuring the actor Karl Urban.
Yes, what an original and witty joke that we've not heard before.
What a nice little urbane bon mot.
Oh, Jesus Christ. So, Michael, what we're taking a look at is really the way in which the inner city influences certain narratives around horror, and how that wasn't a very common thing, but has slowly crept its way into the mainstream, Michael.
Probably because, Ben, in the olden days, there was no such thing as an inner city, really.
Yes, I suppose it's a rather new, modern, and shiny concept.
When does that come from?
So, Michael, the earliest examples of this are a classic over there in London town, Michael.
Oh, mate.
Which is a very correct choice of words. We had narratives that would come out in the Victorian era in the old penny dreadfuls, Michael.
Yes.
And generally speaking, a lot of those penny dreadfuls would reflect social woes of the time or social fears of the time. They try and capture it in there, Michael. There were the classic racist ones like a Dracula and the Mummy or the Beetle. Sorry, the Beetle, not the Mummy.
Go on.
And that would have, a foreign influence coming into the city and corrupting the city, Michael. It would be terrible and awful and spooky and scary. And oh no, look at those foreigners. They're coming to ruin my lovely London town.
Right.
But
like
then again, Michael,
that one with Joss Whedon from a few weeks ago.
Oh, bloody...
the Nevers, is that what it was called?
Ladies with X-Men leanings.
Yeah.
Yes, it's a classic. But Michael...
Yes.
While it was very common to make up those kind of things and the external horror coming to ruin London, because they were big, dirty racists, Michael.
In the old days, Ben, to their credit, Ben, everybody was back then, so it was kind of fine.
Yeah.
It was kind of normal.
No,
it was kind of normal.
That's not the line of this podcast.
We're not a podcast that holds the past to the standards of the present, are we? Is that our bon mot?
We'd probably be a lot more successful if we did. But anyway,
go on.
There's an interesting question and a topic for another time. But Michael, there's one particular Victorian novel by Robert Louis Stevenson. And that, on the other hand, didn't really look at the external threat to London town, but looked at London town itself and went, do you know what? I don't reckon this is good for people.
Robinson Crusoe.
Robinson Crusoe. Yes, the classic tale where a man notably isn't anywhere near a city.
Yes, the
and
sheer horror of the urban has frightened him off to live on an island. If I remember Robert Louis Stevenson's Robinson Crusoe correctly.
It's not even...
Which I might not, granted.
It's not even Robert Louis Stevenson.
Robert Louis Stevenson's Robinson Crusoe. Oh, that city is so spooky. I'm going to go live on an island.
Yes, correct. Or you might be talking about Robert Louis Stevenson's Jekyll and Hyde.
Oh, I was talking about Robert Louis Stevenson's the Captain Hook. What was that one called? There's so many pirates. Treasure Island.
Treasure Island. So in Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde, we are introduced to the eponymous Dr. Jekyll, Michael, and he's a mild-mannered scientist.
He's just a commoner garden doctor, man.
A commoner garden doctor, man, and he's of some standing in society, Michael. He's heading up towards the upper middle classes there, so he's of some standing in society. But Michael, he doesn't feel that he's very well suited to modern life, Michael. He's very tired of society and the chains it places upon him to be a civil and good man.
He lives in a lovely terraced house in London town.
He does, that has a back entrance into a not so lovely part of London town. And so, Michael, what happens is our good Dr. Jekyll takes an L potion, a formula as he calls it, and when he takes the formula, Michael, it unleashes his inner kind of monster. Now, in more modern adaptations of this lovely little story, Michael, he is in every sense a monster. Mr. Hyde is a big kind of brutish thing. He's got a lot of power, a lot of strength.
A funny hat, a cigar.
We've seen some very famous examples, Michael, in things like A League of Extraordinary Gentlemen.
Yeah, and Van Helsing.
Or the 2002 classic starring one huge jacked man, Van Helsing.
He's got a funny
Michael,
hat.
In the actual book, he's far more of an opportunistic killer. He actually turns into someone shorter and more misshapen. A bit of a Quasimodo, if you will.
A little knobbly gnarly fella.
Yes, and he runs around committing insane acts of violence. And then the worst thing about it, Michael, is that he hides among the working classes who already look like kind of ghoulish, gargoylish folks and fairies. It's a very interesting novel, but the fundamental theme of the novel is, Michael, gosh, isn't the inner city a bit shit?
Aren't the working classes gross?
A little bit of that too, Michael. And a good heaping dose of homosexuality. What a sin.
Get rid of it. No time for it here in London town.
No time for it here in London town unless it's 2021, in which case, come on over.
Yeah, nothing but, in fact.
No, it's everything but, I think you'll find, in certain cases.
Very good. A very good pro-homosexuality joke, Ben. No homo haters on this podcast.
We will have less of it. He's not coming on. We're not having Chris Pratt on as a guest anytime soon. But Michael, that would go on to influence lots of different horror genres, Michael. We'd encounter a few different inner city horrors, but not as many as you think, Michael, because you quite accurately pointed out that it's a rather modern concept. This idea of the built-up metropolis, Michael, is a new thing.
Because Ben, most horror stories in the olden days was about like, oh, Mary, our son has died. Let's go to our family's country manor to recuperate. I hope there's no ghosts in it.
And then, sure enough, bloody hell, a ghost.
Fuck me, there's loads of ghosts here, Mary.
Yes. So one of the great markers of older horror is the isolated setting. We've got a big spooky manor on the hill, and that's your classic gothic horror, Michael. It's just a big spooky scary place. It's like, nobody's been here in years. We should move there because we're in financial ruin. Oh no. Oh, look at my wife. How I hate her so. How I'll mistreat her. What's that? She can speak to ghosts. Oh no.
All she needs is a bit of fresh air in the countryside by the sea near where all of those people drowned, coincidentally. I'm sure that won't come up.
And by Jove, if she doesn't straighten up, I'll put her in the attic or send her to an asylum.
With her women's rights. The
with
lunatic.
What a laughable concept.
She wants the vote and is seeing dead suffragettes.
And not to be haunted by ghosts. But anyway, Michael, so what we'd have is those settings, and those would be quite famous, Michael. And then as time progressed, we kind of lost those isolated settings, and we occasionally experimented with bigger settings in our horror stories as we went along. But fundamentally, Michael, what that runs into is the issue of, hang on a minute, if you had a horror in a city, surely someone would see what was happening. Because at a certain point, Michael, what we got was highly visible cities with electric lighting and hopefully a police force of some kind and possibly just very large crowds.
Yeah. So then, Ben, it has to move on to that the horror is apathy.
Michael.
What?
Michael, you're strapped in and ready for this.
It's not my
episode.
I've just thought of that, Ben. I'm just so quick.
So, Michael, absolutely, you're absolutely correct. The horror is apathy then. If you look around at your community and nobody's there to help you, what have you got? Because in those classic horror stories, Michael, you'd have a little motley crew of people who'd kind of know what was going on. You'd have the groundskeeper who was like, don't go into that room. That room's a bloody terrible room. Don't do it. He'd be from Devon or somewhere like that.
The butler might be there.
The butler might be there going, well, I used to serve Mrs. McGillicuddy Reeks, and
there
she was wonderful.
Oh, she's gone again.
And you, madam, I know Mrs. McGillicuddy Reeks.
We've both done a reasonably good joke there, Ben, but ruined each other's jokes by speaking over it. Either of those jokes would have probably flown on their own. Now both of them are fucking ruined.
So anyway, Michael, you're absolutely right. Then what we see is a mass shift in setting. And two things happen around the 1970s or 80s, okay? One is the introduction of isolated camps or cabins that have kind of become the staple of American horror. So we move from the stately manor on the hill to the cabin in the woods. Mm-hmm. And then you get your Camp Crystal Lakes, etc., etc., etc.
Yeah.
And then you get the suburbs.
A lot of horror in the suburbs.
A lot of horror in the suburbs, Michael. And again, it's for the same rough narrative reasons, but also for that isolated kind of fearful quality of, if you scream in the suburbs and no one's around to hear it, did you really scream and did you die at the hands of one Michael Myers?
Michael Myers, exactly. Benjamin, also, there's something for the 80s, 70s and 80s cinema going experience. There's nothing more terrifying than a pretty white teenage girl being killed.
Oh, what horror, Michael? What horror?
The biggest horror.
How could you ruin American society in that way?
More
so
quickly.
The American, the mass media. Oh,
go on.
Topical. You got that there. Good man.
Go on.
So what happens is, Michael, the mass horror experience moves to the suburbs or moves to a cabin, but
yes,
during that massive exodus of people from the cities, to the suburbs, and that's where the setting moves. That doesn't mean that the city stops existing, Michael.
No, it's even more spooky, if anything.
It's even more spooky, if anything. And what might happen, Michael, is you might begin to see abandoned things like social housing or projects or something like that. And if a black boy dies in the projects and no one's around to care, does that mean that apathy is the true villain of all 90s horror?
Or is it Tony Todd?
Excellent question there, Michael. So, if we started out with things like Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde in the inner city, then the spiritual successor to those is the kind of late 80s, early 90s black horror kind of oeuvre.
Yes.
So there's
Benjamin.
Go on.
But Chicago in the 90s is so different from London in the 1800s. I find it hard to reconcile them as extensions of the same genre.
Do you?
In a sense. Maybe, though, I'm facing that now and thinking, if we looked back on it 100 years, a city is a city is a city. If you take away the historical differences, maybe I'm wrong. But, I mean, is London horror about slums? I suppose it is a bit, isn't it?
It is. Yeah. No, it absolutely is. I mean, especially Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde. You hit it on it there. Aren't the working classes awful? And that's the point.
Oh, so knobbly.
So I would say that Chicago today and London in the 1800s are chalk and cheese. They're completely separate social entities with completely separate things. But
yeah,
they do have working classes, just in a very different setting. And fundamentally, the prey of the villain or the monster or the supernatural entity in these tales is the working classes. They're the ones who ultimately suffer at the hands of this thing. So you hit the nail on the head there, Michael, when you said Candyman.
Oh, I didn't say it bloody 5 times, though, I tell you what.
It's 3, but okay. It's 3, isn't it? Or is it 5?
Well, you've said that with such confidence, I'm just going to let you stew in it.
No.
As we say, Ben, earlier, I'm just going to let you stew there. You keep going, and I'll tell you at the end who was
cuckold. Right. So anyway, the way that works is, Michael, the Candyman is an urban horror.
Yeah.
And it follows the same beats as a classic haunting from, say, a suburb or a manor, where it's a vengeful spirit come back to haunt the land of the living. But in this particular case, Michael, the Candyman legend is something that preys on a project. It's not a manor on the hill. It's not a suburban kind of stately home. It's not a cabin in the woods. It's a housing development in the inner city. And this particular ghost is spoken about by everybody. It's kept alive in the minds of the people. And one of the most interesting things about Candyman is it's not believed by white people in the context of the movie. It's kind of a silly thing that the African American community in Candyman talk about. It's what a ridiculous superstition. And it comes back to that wonderful othering that we had in those tales, where you'd meet in any kind of Victorian literature, you'd meet the working classes or something like that, and they'd be made the butt of a joke as a silly superstitious lot. And
Look
how
at
quaint.
Paddy. Look at Paddy. He's afraid of his banshee.
Exactly. And one of the fascinating things that we see there, Michael, is there's a British professor character that functions as exposition in Candyman, and it's so interesting. He talks about it as if it's an anthropological kind of study into this thing that people are obsessed with, and he tries to dehumanize it. And then what we get through the character of Candyman is we get a woman who has to go into the projects and encounter the actual violence that was rampant at the time. And we get to see her come face to face with the reality of living in a project.
Yes.
So we have those two sides represented to us.
But Ben,
yes,
what colour is her skin?
she's white, Michael.
She's also white.
She's white.
And that is the most jarring thing, having watched Candyman and the new Candyman.
Yes, it is, isn't it?
It's very jarring, because the first Candyman, although Candyman is a black ghost, and most of the victims are black, not all, but most, and it's about black people living in the projects in Chicago in the 90s. But it's all told from a white perspective.
It is.
Very much so. A white middle-class woman perspective.
It is.
And the final scene is white middle-class woman revenge, not Candyman revenge.
Not at all. Yeah, it's white middle-class woman revenge for being made to feel scared at the earlier part of the movie. So it's really interesting. And I do think that the new Candyman by Nia DaCosta is very much a... Oh, how are we going to put this? It's
all right. It's insensitively, I'll say.
No, let's try not to do that, Michael. But it's very much a reclaiming of black narrative for black people.
I get you. Having seen both, Ben, the new one, in my mind, as a white boy who saw it when I was 10 or 12 or whatever I was,
sure.
The new one. It's a weird thing to say in a lot of ways, but the new one is much more like I remember the old one being than the original actually is.
Okay, so in a sense, then what you're saying is that the new one in 2021, has taken the kind of spiritual beats of the original, enhanced those, so that the nostalgia of your brain is like, oh yeah, that's Candyman.
I guess what the new one has done is taken, because the original, Ben, is, let's be honest, quite derivative of Freddy Krueger.
How dare you?
I will. I'll dare myself. And what makes it different from Freddy Krueger is its setting, not its ghost or its spectacular kills. And in fact, I never liked the aspect of Candyman that he was made of bees. I thought that was I think that was a step too far.
I quite like the bees.
I mean, I like the bees, but it doesn't. It's a gimmick too far. Like,
Yeah,
why does he have
a hook
why does he
hand
have a
and
hook
bees?
hand and bees? What is the thematic relationship between a hook hand and bees? Like, with Freddy Krueger, he was doing a murder with that glove. The parents caught him and threw him in the fire, and that's why he looks like that. But with with Candyman, he was doing a murder with a hook, and the parents caught him. Oh no, he wasn't doing any murders.
He wasn't.
He was perfectly innocent.
He's perfectly innocent.
And they caught him. They chopped his hand off. They put a hook in, and then killed him with bees for some reason.
Why did they put a hook in, Michael?
I don't remember. It's in the new one. So, have you seen the new one?
I haven't seen the new one, but you can do spoilers.
Okay, I'm going to do spoilers for the new one. In the new Candyman, Ben, it's all about Candyman actually being a legacy or a hive of wronged black men who are killed through various injustices. So there's the original Candyman, the one who looks like Tony Todd, and he was the son of a slave who fell in love with a white lady. And that was no use, Ben, so he was lynched. But then, basically, the plot of the new one is that there's a guy and he's trying to bring Candyman back, Ben. And he's trying to bring Candyman back instead of as like a ghost of black shame that kills black people. He's trying to bring him back as an avenger of the wronged black people. So we're going to go right into the ending, Ben. Do you want to go right into the ending?
Go on, you go right on in there.
In the ending of Candyman, the new Candyman, Ben, the guy who's been setting the whole thing up, the guy who's obsessed with the kind of Candyman mythology, he sets up our previously, up to this point, main character and essentially kills him, chops off his hand, puts a hook on his hand, gives him the Candyman coat, and then the police arrive and assume he's been doing all the killings and shoot him. And then he's kind of absorbed into the Candyman being, and he becomes an aspect of Candyman. And and all the cops are white, Ben, because it's Chicago. And his lady friend is being arrested for being involved in all of this, and she looks into the wing mirror, the rearview mirror of the car, Ben, and she says Candyman either 3 or 5 times, and her boyfriend, is he her boyfriend? I think he was. Shows up as Candyman and kills all the white cops who are shooting innocent unarmed black men.
I like it.
Do you want a bit of social commentary in your films, Ben? Well, there you go.
Boom.
And then guess what happens, Ben?
He disappears.
No, bees come and he turns into Tony Todd.
Oh, good. That's excellent. Well, that's what we wanted, isn't it?
That's what we wanted. Yeah, that's what we wanted.
Did you know, Michael, that Nia DaCosta, the director of bloody Candyman 2 or Candyman 2021, because there are technically sequels to Candyman.
They're no use.
They're no use. She is directing the new Captain Marvel sequel.
Oh, good.
Nia DaCosta's the director of that, so that'll be interesting. Anyway, sorry, to move on from there. So, Michael, what we see there is as you said, it's a wonderful kind of social commentary on occasion, but that's a good example of, I suppose, blaxploitation in the 90s. And what I mean by blaxploitation is exploiting kind of black fears, black reputations, black stereotypes in the 90s for horror. And what we see now in 2021, which is reclaiming those kind of twisted narratives and trying to make them into, I suppose, a cultural horror. So as opposed to Candyman being a predatory spirit that will kill indiscriminately if you say his name 3 times, it's an embodiment, or 5 times, depending on which one it is. He is the embodiment of a vengeful black experience. So that's pretty interesting. But, Michael, this is a really tragic thing that kind of happened in the early 90s, where a lot of people attempted to make cultural commentary through black experience. One of the other examples in that genre is Tales from the Hood, which is a little anthology kind of mini clip series about how the black community was destroying itself through systemic kind of policy changes and things like that, and endemic violence and police corruption and things like that. And that's a pretty interesting little series. But unfortunately, what's happened for a lot of these, as you pointed out, Michael, they're no good, the sequels, quite often.
Yeah, they usually miss the point a bit.
Exactly, because what's happened is they've picked up the story and they've assumed that people find this scary because of urban crime, or people find this scary because of black on black violence, or people find this scary because of this, that, these, or those, and then they take the wrong aspect in each case and kind of build it up. And then what you get is films that border on racistly stereotypical. So one of the... I'm going to read you off a list of... This happened in the 2000s. I'm going to read you off a list of black horror movies in the 2000s, right?
Okay.
So what we got... We went from... Let me read them in the 90s.
I'm worried about
this. These are black-starred and black-focused films in the 1990s, right? To Sleep with Anger, fair enough, nothing too big there. Candyman in 1992, Tales from the Hood, Vampire in Brooklyn, Spawn and Blade. Those are theoretically some of our 90s horror-based things. Spawn and Blade being a little bit out of place, so on and so forth.
They're action comic book movies. They're not horrors.
Okay, but then, Michael, in 2000, after the success of a lot of these 90s films starring black horror, we got films like Leprechaun in the Hood.
Yes, no use.
Street Tales of Terror.
Oh, that sounds interesting.
Bones.
Oh, with Emily Deschanel.
No, with Snoop Doggy Dogg. Hood Rat.
Okay.
Urban Evil, A Trilogy of Fear.
Oh, we should have watched that.
And now we start to get really bad. Snoop Dogg's Hood of Horror.
Okay, right.
Zombies with a Z, because nothing says urban like replacing your S's with Z's. Vampires with IYAZ at the end, which is just wholesale. Bloods versus Wolves in 2006.
Bloods and the Crips, yeah.
Crypts with a Z in 2002.
Very clever, like the Crips.
Vamps with a Z in 2004.
I see where you're going with this, Ben.
And Holla. So, unfortunately, very, very often, when we get some kind of successful black-driven horror or urban horror, it then gets co-opted and divorced from its original kind of message. And then we get gangs taking on vampires or gangs taking on zombies or whatever you want. And it gets pretty messy, Michael. But luckily,
yes, go on.
The core of urban horror has never really gone away. And so what we get as we move forward in time, we get a lot more modern attempts, Michael, recently. And Candyman 2 being the vanguard of that, it's kind of, I keep calling it Candyman 2, but Candyman 2021 is very much in keeping with the true spirit of what was intended with Candyman originally. The urban legend element of it, the black experience, the lynching, all that kind of thing. It's all there in Candyman 2 again, and it repeats.
It's not Candyman 2.
I keep saying Candyman 2. I'm very, very sorry. I mean Candyman 2021. And what we get is that. But what happens is, Michael, we do get other real attempts at that, and one of them is the kind of, I suppose, if you wanted to call it the British black experience, which is Attack the Block, which is another kind of
film, Ben.
horror. It's a great film, Michael. It's a great film. Again,
though, it's another one where the kind of introductory character or point of view character is a white middle class woman.
Yeah, so it's an interesting bridging of the gap, Michael. It's a real in-between thing. But fundamentally, I think what separates it from Candyman is that the white woman is proven to be incredibly wrong by the end of the film. So it absolutely bases its opening acts on perception of black people in the UK, perception of those communities, etc., and how that's actually more harmful than good, and how very often we get it completely wrong.
And also watch out, there's aliens coming on, they're big.
Also watch out, there's aliens. But again, what we find in these films, Michael, and I suppose the true horror of urban horror, is that when these characters are attacked in these urban horror environments, they have nowhere to turn. So one of the interesting things about setting them within the black community is that, especially in the United States, no one will believe you if you go to the police. They're not on your side. So therefore, that isolated quality of horror that was so prevalent in early Gothic horror and would then become prevalent in the cabin in the woods or suburbia, it returns, and it's set in the city where there are lots and lots of people, but this time you won't be heard scream because of systemic racism. Very interesting.
Benjamin.
Yes.
we've mostly been talking about Chicago and London, but really a lot of the later ones focus on one simple fact, and that simple fact is that Los Angeles is an absolute hellhole.
Yeah, it just doesn't.
One of my favourite Los Angeles is an absolute hellhole horror films of all time is Predator 2.
Yeah, perfect example.
And Predator 2 is just... Like, the Predator himself is a much less interesting character than horrible, shitty 1997 Los Angeles, where the cops are corrupt, they're just having running battles on the street with gangs, everything is dark and grim and horrible and meatpacking factories, and it's a much more horrifying environment than the jungle of the first Predator.
Yeah, absolutely.
And nowhere, Ben, have I seen that better than in... This is barely a horror film, it's a psychological thriller. Have you seen The Guilty with Jake Gyllenhaal? It's on Netflix currently.
I haven't seen it recently, no.
It's a one-man powerhouse display, Ben. It takes place entirely over the phone.
Oh,
but
okay.
the setting of it is Los Angeles as a horror hellscape. Not horror in the sense of there's a man with a hand and it's a hook and he's going to get you.
Yeah.
But just, there's so many people, there's so much crime, everything's horrible, everyone's disaffected, it's gross. Get out of there, Los Angeles, it's a real hellscape.
Okay, so
and
Apathy
pretty
was
much
the villain all along.
Apathy was and pretty much all of those films, which I haven't seen that you mentioned earlier with all the Zs in them,
Yeah.
they're all set in Los Angeles as a real shithole.
Yeah, 90% of the time.
Yeah, that's
a lot
pretty
of that.
much the theme of a lot of it. So we haven't actually really covered a Los Angeles one, but Los Angeles as a modern... I think Los Angeles is the city of... I mean, it's the whole setting of Angel, the TV show Angel. The whole point of the
Hell
TV
on
show
Earth.
Angel is Los Angeles is a real hellhole of a place.
Yeah. Oh,
So maybe we should do a live broadcast, a remote broadcast from Los Angeles for next year's Halloween episode.
Yeah, okay. If you want to donate to our Patreon, ladies and gentlemen, so we can get that up off the ground. But yeah, so I mean, those urban horror films are still very relevant today, and I think we'll probably end up seeing more of them, Michael, in the wake of Nia DaCosta's Candyman, because I think it's been a phenomenal success. She's the most successful... I think she's the most successful director of colour to date. I think Candyman has made her a ridiculous amount of money. I mean, not her personally. Not her personally. But anyway, ladies and gentlemen, what are your favourite moments of urban horror? Did we hit the mark this time or did we miss it completely? Let us know what you think the appeal of urban horrors is. You can get in touch with us in a bunch of different ways. You can find us on the interwebs at www.seomrabeag.com, seomrabeag.com.
Means tiny room in Irish.
You can find us on the Instagram at Sure Listen Podcast.
It means Sure Listen Podcast in English.
It does indeed. You can find us on Twitter at ListenSure. But, ladies and gentlemen,
yes,
if you want this kind of on-brand witty banter and a little bit of speedy response,
the occasional bon mot,
the occasional bon mot, as they say in France, you should get up on Le Discord, baby.
hop up on it, yeah, hop up on it. Allons-y, as they say in French.
Where you can get in touch with us, chat with us about things that you've seen, things that you'd like to hear on the podcast, topics that you'd like to hear brought up. It's the best place to do it, and you'll find a link down in the description. Ladies and gentlemen, if you haven't had enough horror for 1 month, you can join us next week for our episode, Where Have All the Good Wolves Gone?
Oh, we're doing werewolves!
We're doing werewolves next
Awesome.
week. Werewolves depictions in cinema and pop culture and what's bloody happened with them. And ladies and gentlemen, this very Wednesday, if you want some bloody spooky werewolf comic book recommendations, you can listen to our other podcast, Collecting Issues, the bi-weekly comic book club. I've got too many intros.
The podcast that doesn't take a pop at culture.
Where we'll be taking a look at Moonshine Volume 1 from... It's got bootleggers and werewolves, Michael. Oh, it's a great time.
I'm pretty excited. Ben.
Yes.
Dibsy, you watching Wolfman with Jack Nicholson. I'm not watching it.
Game on. Rawr. I'm Jack Nicholson.
I'm Jack.
Rawr.
I'm a wolf. Michelle Pfeiffer.
I'm a wolf.
I've got urges. I'll watch the one with Benicio del Toro. I'll watch that one. And,
You watch
and
that
Anthony
one.
Hopkins.
Okay. All right. Talk to you then, ladies and gentlemen. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye. It's 5 times, by the way. It's Candyman. You say it 5 times.
You fucker.
See you next week.
See you next week.